Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the DAAD Rise info session. As people are trickling in, we're just going to go ahead and get started. My name is Katie Salgado. I'm the primary advisor for all things DAAD Rise at ASU. So it's great to see you all here today, and thank you for joining us. We have a really exciting session. Basically, what today is going to look like, we got about an hour. It's going to go by real fast for the first 30 minutes or so. I'll be taking some Q&A. We're going to be going over eligibility and some of the main points of the DAAD Rise program. And then in the last 30 minutes, we are joined here by three of our DAAD Rise alumni, actually. So they will have the floor to share a little bit about their experiences. If at any point you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Just know that some of the questions may be answered as we're going throughout the presentation. So if anything doesn't get caught, just let me know. We'll also have some time at the end to go over any Q&A as well. So welcome. Again, my name is Katie Salgado, and I'm so excited you're here today. So for those of you who are not as familiar with our office, maybe you got an email from me or saw a blast from one of the newsletters. I work within the Office of National Scholarship Advisement, or ONSA for short, and we're a really cool office, actually. Some folks have never heard of us before, and if this is your first time, then welcome. It's great to see you. We are a highly specialized office. We publicize all the major awards related to national scholarships. So anything like DAAD Rise that you might see about, we will advise applicants on basically from start to finish on their application. So that includes, sending out the signal to say, hey, we think you would be a good fit for this scholarship, providing essay feedback on any of your written materials. Some scholarships that we work with also require mock interviews, which is really cool. And, we'll create campus committees or do mock interviews with students. And just in general, we're here to support your personal, professional, and academic growth. So again, if you're new to ONSA, if you've never heard of our office before, it's lovely to meet you. I'm so excited you're here because we work with all students. Technically, we're housed within the Honors College, like our actual physical office is in the Honors College, but we work with all students, Barrett, outside of Barrett, all 5 campuses, and even alumni. So if at any point you find one of the scholarships on our websites and you're really interested in applying, if you, let's say, graduate from ASU, you could still technically apply to these scholarships, if eligible, as an alumni and work with our office, which is really cool. And we get a lot of students who graduate and come back. Maybe they're working, maybe they're doing Peace Corps or some other opportunity, and they're working with our office on some of the post-grad opportunities, which is really neat. So I get this question a lot when I say national scholarship. Some students are like, well, how is that different, right? How is DAAD Rise different from your run-of-the-mill internship? And the biggest thing I would say is their funding source. So our office works specifically with national scholarships defined by their funding source. So a lot of the programs we work with are funded by the US State Department, for example. And in the case for DAAD Rise, it's funded by the German government. So that means it's very specialized. It can be competitive, right? Because you're not just applying in a pool of ASU students, it's within a larger pool, but it's also very purposeful. So the cool part about DAAD Rise, and this is one of the reasons why I really love this program, is it's a mutual exchange program. So universities in the US will host German students to come do research projects. And in return, universities in Germany love to host students from the US and the UK and Ireland, as well as Canada, to do scholarships and do research in Germany, right? So it's a mutual exchange in that way, and it's life-changing, right? A lot of students don't do it necessarily for the money. It obviously, the DAAD scholarship is fully funded in the sense where they pay for your airfare, your housing, and all that good stuff. But most students do it for the experience, to live in Europe for the summer, to live in Germany, to have that international experience that will really set their professional trajectory and really, skyrocket that. So that's something that's just a little bit different. Again, this is not something where you're matched up with a company, for example, or a hospital. All of the research internships that you would be matched with under DAAD are typically at German universities. And we'll talk a little bit more about the internships in a bit. But once again, we have a fully fledged office. This is a really cool part about ASU. Most fellowship offices across the US might have 1, maybe 2 folks. who run the office. ASU, we have over 6, right? So depending on the scholarship program or fellowship program that you're working on, you have a designated primary advisor. So in the case of DAAD, we would be working together. So if you intend on applying this semester, hello, it's nice to meet you. And I'm really excited to work with you on your application. And just know that if you're new to ONSA and you're just like, where do I make an appointment? How do I get started? The best thing to do is always visit our website. So onsa.asu.edu, that's where you can search all of the scholarships up at the top, all of our upcoming events, for example, info sessions, socials, end of year events, etc. And then of course, if you, on the right-hand side, it'll say make an appointment and you'll be able to find my name and make an appointment. So when in doubt, always refer back to our website because that's going to be the one-stop shop. Okay, so let's get into the good stuff. Obviously, if you've read my email, you probably know a little bit about DAAD Rise. It looks intriguing. You're here. It is a summer research internship in Germany for sophomore and junior undergraduate students. Basically, how it works out is that if you are chosen, you work with doctoral students and receive mentorship from them. So it's 10 weeks minimum, 3 months maximum, anytime after May 15th. So what that means, it's a summer research internship. If you want to stay for a full 3 months in Germany, you are welcome to do so. And there are a lot of students who do that. The reason why there's a 3 months maximum is because if you are a US citizen, that's the longest you can stay in Europe without needing a visa. So 3 months and 1 day, then you would need a visa, but 3 months or less, you get to stay in Germany and you don't have to do all that paperwork. So totally up to you. If you're chosen, this is something that you figure out with your research mentor. So the doctoral student who you work with. The setup is a lot like the universities that you may be, like the university and lab system in the US, in the sense that you would be working in a lab, there would be a PI, and then obviously a team typically of PhD students who are also on the team. And those are the people who are ultimately choosing your application, the PhD students, which is great because they've signed up basically to be mentors. They're very excited to host students from the US and around the world, really, and to be a part of their lab. So that's I think that has been one of the main reasons why ASU students have found so much success in the DAAD Rise program, is because the mentors who sign up to do these things for DAAD Rise are really quite enthusiastic about mentoring you and having you be a part of their lab. So each year it's about 300 scholarships. Again, this fluctuates with funding, but for the most part, it's anywhere from 300 to 350 scholarships that are awarded each year. And it's all funded by the German government. In order to be eligible, this is a big one. I mentioned before, sophomore or junior enrolled at Arizona State. So I know with ASU, sometimes things get a little funky with credits and whatnot. We define sophomore or junior based off of your graduation year. So you need to be graduating spring 2026, spring 2027, or even if you're at fall 2025, you would be eligible. But essentially, DAAD wants you, after your summer internship, to go back to school for at least a semester, right? So whatever your graduation year, if you're still if this is in the air, maybe you're thinking about graduating early, just let us know, because you do have to verify that as part of your application, and that's ultimately what makes you eligible. U.S. citizens and non-U.S. citizens are eligible. So every year we get plenty of international students who are enrolled at ASU who are applying to DAAD as well, which is amazing. And this is really exciting because a lot of national scholarships, because of the funding source, maybe being through taxpayer money or something like that, a lot of them indicate U.S. citizenship. But for DAAD, because the funding source is the German government, their eligibility is far more open. And then the minimum is a 3.25 GPA. For the most part, I would say 3.5 GPA or higher is ideal. This does come into play when you're being matched with internships, right? Now, you don't need to necessarily have a 4.0 by any means. But for the most part, I've seen the lowest GPA that I've seen that has gotten matched is around 3.5. So if you're closer to the 3.25, that doesn't mean that you can't apply. In fact, I encourage everyone to apply if you're eligible and really excited about this opportunity, because you never know what's going to happen. But I do like to kind of show that there is a range for students. And of course, if you have a higher GPA, that can be helpful. Particularly if you are a second-year student currently and you don't yet have a ton of lab experience, that GPA is going to be really important. Partially because they want to know that you are on a good track with your studies, and especially if the internship that you're applying to is closely related to your field of study, they want to know that you're going to be able to handle certain content areas and whatnot. So again, if you have any serious questions about GPA, I'm happy to chat with you one-on-one about that as well. And then of course you have to be in a STEM major to apply to DAAD. So they like to say majors in biology, chemistry, physics, earth sciences, engineering, or closely related fields. So again, if you're in the STEM area, you're great. I have had some students in psychology find some really cool projects on DAAD that are, within like the neuroscience section. So you just never know. If you're interested in the hard sciences and really doing, hard sciences, natural sciences kind of research stuff, then DAAD Rise is probably a good fit. And then the application goes by really fast. So obviously today was the first day that they opened up an application. It's officially live, but the deadline to apply is November 30th, 2024, 3 p.m. AZ time. So that means there's about a 6-week window or so to get your application together and submit. And of course, that happens during midterms, Thanksgiving break, winter break, finals, and all that stuff. So if this is an opportunity that you're really excited about and you want to get going, then I strongly, strongly recommend that we talk sooner rather than later, that we get going on an intake meeting and get you going, because it's not a terribly difficult application to complete, but it does occur during a very busy time in the semester. So this year we have about 500 available internships that are being offered. All of the internships vary by location, field of study, and kind of technical skills preferred, right? And every year the internships change. So what you see on the internship database this year will not look the same as next year, right? It's always going to be kind of a rotating board of internships. The cool thing about DAAD Rise is that they let you apply to a maximum of 3. So you get to basically choose your top 3 internships and apply. But if you're chosen, you're only matched with 1 internship. So that's something to keep in mind. You're not going to have necessarily 3 offers at one time. You're only matched with basically your highest ranked one. And then if the PhD student ranks you equally as high, then you get matched and you get pulled out of the rest of the pool, and so on and so forth. I would say the internships, they do their best to really match you as best as they can. And when students ask me, like, what are the odds of success, right? What are my chances of getting selected? Well, it really just depends on how many students apply to the individual internships, right? So if we're looking on the screen here, the top one that says mains, let's say 5 people apply to that internship, well, then your odds are 1 in 5, right? But if someone, let's say Heidelberg is your top internship and 20 people apply, then it's 1 in 20. So there's no way for us to really know what your odds of success are for an individual internship. But I will say that ASU students who apply through our office, their rate of selection is significantly higher than those who do not work with our office. I crunched the numbers, it's around 10 to 15% higher, right? So if for the students who decide I'm just going to apply to DAAD on my own, I'm not going to have anyone look at my materials, I'm just going to type it up and send it. Their selection tends to be around 15% likelihood versus our ASU students. The selection rate this past cycle was closer to 25%, 25 to 30% selection rate, which is crazy. Specifically because it's an international scholarship, right? And again, I don't think that's necessarily because one batch of students was more qualified than the other. I think, honestly, it's just you're having your materials reviewed, working in cohort kind of style, looking at your cover letters together, getting help on your CV. All of this stuff makes you just articulate your goals a little bit clearer to your audience. So strongly recommend working with myself, with our office. We're here to help. we have a ton of resources for you, so we're really excited to be a part of your application journey. And then there are a bunch of perks with DAAD too. There's no German language skills required, which is wonderful, but we have teamed up with Dr. Reeves in the School of International Languages and Cultures. She actually offers a spring semester session B course, virtual, that's an optional language and culture course. And she invites all of the DAAD Rise students who've been awarded to join her class to basically do like a German language course, which is so awesome. You gain practical work experience for DAAD, which is honestly, that's the big selling point, I think, with this internship. Certainly, it's really hard for STEM students to do things like study abroad just by the nature of your curriculum. It's very standardized. You know, you can't take a semester off without pushing your graduation year back. So you get the best of both worlds. You are working full-time, you're doing lab research, you're forging really important professional connections. And, you know, that does make a big difference when you're applying to things like graduate school and applying to jobs. And then, of course, you're living in Germany. So when you're not working, you are in Germany living your best life. I know a lot of students travel throughout Europe, and our alumni will speak to that in a little bit. But you're given a monthly stipend. You receive health insurance and airfare reimbursement. So they pay for your airfare to get there as well. And there is a 3-day conference in Heidelberg that they give you a small stipend for. If you want to go there, share your research, present. I know a lot of our students have presented there as well. But if you're not a big on presenting, you can also go there and just meet other DAAD Rise scholars. So it's really, really cool. Again, very great networking opportunity. Like I mentioned, people don't do it for the money, even though it is fully funded. People do it for the connections that they forge. And that is truly one of the best parts of the program. So the application itself, like I said, not anything too overwhelming, but I like to kind of give a preview to this just so you know what you're getting into. So they do ask for an official transcript. This is something that you order through My ASU. They ask for either a resume or a CV. Either one is fine. Again, your audience is an international audience. So a resume tends to be more US based versus a CV tends to be a little bit longer and academic in nature. Again, happy to chat with you more in our intake meeting about what that would look like and how to get that polished and ready to go. The biggest thing that I think has students either applying or not to DAAD within a given cycle is the letter of recommendation. So for the program, they only require one letter of recommendation, but it has to be from a PhD in a STEM field. They're really, really strict about this. So it has to be from someone who holds a PhD. If it's like a TA or a doctoral student or something like that, they cannot write the letter. In some cases, they will accept a co-signed letter. So if you're working really closely with a doctoral student, maybe they write the letter, they sign it, and the PI signs it, then you're good to go. But it's tough as a second-year student. You might still be in some of the larger lecture style classes, and unless you have a good relationship with one of your professors, it might be tough. Again, they're pretty hard and fast about this PhD rule. So if you have any questions about that, we can also chat about that if you'd like. And then, of course, they have 3 cover letters. So again, you can apply up to 3 internships. So each of those internships requires a separate cover letter. So you're not writing like a blanket cover letter or blanket personal statement for 3 internships. Each of these cover letters need to be highly, highly tailored to each of the projects. And that's something that working with our office, we work with you to really think about, well, what's so special about this? How can I make my cover letter stand out? Avoid cliche, avoid, you know, all of these kind of generalizations that are very well-meaning, but may not set us up for success, especially if you're applying to a very popular program. And then the enrollment verification form, this is something that you get at the ASU registrar, and a list of courses. Again, this is something that you create yourself. I don't want you worrying too much about that. These are a bit more technical in nature, and I'll show you, we have a Canvas page and everything that goes over through some of that. But really the biggest thing out of this entire list to really start thinking about is who's going to write my letter of recommendation, which PhD in my life is willing to write me a letter of recommendation, And that should be the one thing on your mind. And if you're a second year student and you don't have anyone who's coming to mind, don't worry about it. We have a lot of students who wait until their junior year to apply, but I'm always happy to chat with you about it as well. Okay, so the timeline, again, I'm a very visual person, so I like to kind of throw this out there so we have an idea of what we're working with. Application is officially live, so if that's something that is exciting to you, you can go ahead, open up an application, start looking through their internships. You have to open up an app in order to see their internship database, so that's something to keep in mind. We have info sessions today and tomorrow, so if there's anyone, colleagues, friends, roommates in your life that also wants to apply to DAAD, just let them know. Please have them come to the info session tomorrow or watch the recording when it's up on our YouTube. We'd love to host them. And this is just really important, just so we all are on the same page about what to expect from the application process and hear from our alumni. And then from there on, you have about 6 weeks. That's when you're deciding whether or not you want to apply, choosing internships, drafting cover letters, getting them reviewed with our office, requesting your letter of rec. And then November 30th, the application closes. So at that point, you need to submit all of your stuff and send it off into the ether. And then in January, that's where the providers are going to look at who applied to their individual internships. They're going to start ranking students based on cover letters, based off of GPA, et cetera. And then from around February to March, applicants are informed as selected, waitlisted, or non-selects. So it's actually a pretty quick process considering how many people apply and how many internships there are. Typically, you hear by the end of February. So pretty good if you're applying to other internship opportunities as well or summer opportunities. You'll hear fairly early about your placement and which of the 3 internships you'll get matched with. Okay, so we're at step 1 here in the timeline as an info session. This is really the place where we're just confirming eligibility, discussing some of the required materials, and in a bit, we'll be hearing from our alumni as well, get kind of the general FAQ answered. At that point, if you're like, okay, that sounds really cool, I'm getting convinced that I need to apply this year, you'll want to go ahead and open up an application. You'll want to register an application, and start searching available internships and narrowing down ranking options and just generally familiarizing yourself with the DAAD portal. Again, to see the list of internships, you have to open up an application. And really, at that point, your goal is to find internships that suit your skills and interests. They have a really cool button on there that you can favorite things. So, you can favorite, of course, more than 3. Eventually, you'll just have to choose your top 3. And if you're having trouble narrowing it down, that's something that we can also talk about. And any sort of additional questions that come up related to the portal or some of the internships, we'll talk about that as well. And then after that point, you'll want to create an intake appointment with myself. We'll do a virtual meeting. These are actually small group meetings over Zoom, so no more than 4 people can sign up at a time. And it's really neat. We'll talk a little bit, why are we applying to DAAD? What's our major? Everyone's coming from different field of studies. And we'll discuss your internship options. We'll go together and kind of unpack some of the internship descriptions, particularly if you're like, I'm between this one and this one, I'm not really sure what the difference is. We'll go over that in your intake, and any other sort of app-specific questions. And at this point, if you are 100% committed to completing a DAAD Rise application this cycle, I will also add you to our Canvas page, which is the holy grail of information on the DAAD Rise application. And then after the intake meeting, we have drafting available. So again, this is virtual. These are follow-up meetings as you draft and revise your cover letters. You can repeat as necessary. Small group settings, again, no more than 4 students. You basically bring the draft of your cover letter as a Google Doc, and we'll do a swap, which is great. You'll get to read through other people's cover letters, add some comments. You will always receive feedback from me personally during these sessions, as well as peer review. So this is just a great way to meet other applicants, read others' cover letters, kind of get inspiration, I think, and improve your writing and editing skills, which honestly, it's just a nice part of the application process is to not feel like you're doing this alone. right? Meeting some other cool people. And I think it's a very collaborative process. And I think that's one of the best things about DAAD personally, is that because the internships are so varied and the folks who are applying are from all different fields of study, you're not necessarily competing against one another as you're writing these cover letters, right? So it's just really neat to see what other people are up to, what kind of research projects that they're interested in, and to support them and also feel supported. And I did mention this DAAD Canvas page. This is what it kind of looks like. This is the home page. When, again, to get access to the Canvas page, you got to do an intake with me, right? This is where all of that kind of nitty gritty stuff about how to order an official transcript and your list of courses and stuff like that, all of that will be on the Canvas page. The reason why I have that is to actually keep track of who's actively applying to DAAD or not. So part of it is, of course, to help you guys, to make sure that you guys have all of the kind of static information, make it really easy to get your questions answered, related to some of the more logistical parts of the application, but it's also so that I can keep track of who's actually applying through ASU. Last year, we had 132 people apply through ASU, right? So there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of students who are interested, kind of coming and going. So if you're a first-year student who's just interested in DAAD, I cannot add you to the Canvas page, and that's why, right? It's only reserved for those who have committed to apply, who are eligible for this cycle, and have committed to apply. But just know, as soon as you're eligible and you do an intake, I will add you to the Canvas page. And we had a record-breaking 34 ASU grantees in 2024. This is the entire DAAD Rise. I believe this is in Heidelberg. There was about 340, 350 total grantees this year, and 34 of them were ASU. So about 10% of the DAAD Rise cohort was ASU students, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, but really amazing. So I'm super stoked for all of our students. They worked really hard on their applications. They were very meticulous and, helped each other with their applications, really. I mean, I'm here to set up all of this stuff. We have the Canvas page, we have the draft reviews, but really what makes these draft reviews so successful and so special are the alumni that come back and give advice, are the students who come in and are giving really thoughtful peer review. So again, this is a really special program. It's one that's near and dear to my heart. I've been working with it for the past 6 years or so, and every year the numbers have just gone up and up and up, right? In 2023, we had 18 winners, and last year we had 34. We've doubled it, so nearly doubled it. So it's been really awesome, and it's a cool program to be a part of. And if you're eligible and interested in applying, please throw your hat in the ring, because it's totally worth it. Okay, that's almost 30 minutes on the dot, which I think is a record. I do want to now take a moment to introduce our alumni who have volunteered their time to chat with you a little bit more about their experiences. So we have Aniston, who is here, Olivia, and Abrup. I have a few fun questions, but Aniston, do you want to start us off, maybe just giving just a little bio about yourself and introducing yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Aniston, as you said. I did DAAD Rise this past summer, and I actually applied as a junior, so I'm a senior this year, graduating in the spring. I'm a molecular biosciences and biotech major, so I feel like we get a lot of engineering applying to. So I am on the life sciences side of things.
Cool, thank you. Olivia?
Yeah, I participated in DOD Rise in 2022. So I've been kind of volunteering my time for the past few years. I'm also working as a peer mentor this year with ONSA. So I'm really excited to be kind of part of that process as again. I am my bachelor's is in chemical engineering. I'm currently a master's student in material science as part of the 4+1 program at ASU. Um, and yeah, I've always had a great time with DOD, and I love hearing everyone's stories about how what they did abroad and people they met. And it's always a really great time.
Awesome. Abru?
Hey guys, so I'm Abhirup, and I was part of the summer 2023 cohort. So I applied for DAAD when I was like in my sophomore year and did my internship before my junior year actually started. My main city was Aachen, and it's like if you guys have already taken a look, where you guys want to apply, or not yet because the applications haven't started yet. But if you have been to Germany before, so it's near Cologne, so it's like northwest of Germany. It was near the border of Netherlands, this small town known as Vals. It was just like 1.6 something ish miles from my like the office where I used to work at. And my internship was in VR development. That's what I've been working at ASU as well. So I was working for this research lab in RWTH, which is like the RWTH Aachen University. And it was mainly related to creating a VR software for them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I want to open the floor up to the three of you. I'd love to just hear, thank you for telling us a little bit about your internship, Avru, but Aniston and Olivia, can you tell us a little bit about what projects you got matched with and what were some of the skills that you thought were really important that you gained?
I can go ahead and start off with this one. So my internship was in Tübingen, which is like a really tiny international town. And my project was based out of the university. And I think I actually took a peek at the programs this year. And it looks like there's only one in Tübingen, and it's at the clinic, the university clinic. So mine wasn't a part of that same like sector of things. But I had a plant biology project. And I kind of worked on, I mean, if there's any like plant bio people, I worked on like the model organism Arabidopsis, kind of worked with some genes and just basically doing like gene knockouts for plant biology using like E. coli and doing infiltrations. Just a lot of science blabber about it. But yeah, so I worked under a postdoc there, and I gained a lot of skills. I think I gained a lot of like professional as well as personal skills being there on my internship. So I think a lot of my professional skills, like a lot of mine was there's a lot of wet lab. So I know that's also kind of differing between programs. Like some people did a lot of dry lab work, half and half, whatever. So mine was just all wet lab. And so I gained a lot of skills, and I also was able to learn how to like do a lot of the skills that I already knew independently, which was really different because I work in a lab here, and I had only honestly been in a lab for a couple months before starting the program or when I applied for the program. And so I had never really worked in a lab independently. So that was something really big for me in the program. Um, Other skills, I mean, other than like straight up wet lab skills, I kind of, I guess, learned independence in general, not only in like the lab, but also on my own living in Germany.
For me, I was at Braunschweig Technical Institute, so northern Germany, pretty close to Denmark, a little bit south of Hamburg, Hanover, that kind of area. It's a smaller town, which was kind of nice for me. I didn't really want like a too big of a city feel. I kind of liked how intimate everything was. My project was cleaning mechanisms for food processing, specifically looking at milk pasteurization. So when you pasteurize milk, it heats up, but then you have whey deposits on the piping instead of being taking apart the entire thing to clean out the whey. We are looking at what concentration and um, temperature to be sending NaOH through the stream to remove any of the fouling on the piping. So I was running cleaning experiments all day, which is kind of fun. And one of the photos is like the mock setup because a company was actually funding this research for the university. So it's a mock up of what they have in their facility on a smaller scale. For me, the biggest skill I learned, I think, was the general research process. So how do you go about like defining your question for your research and then taking little parts of it and breaking it into your individual like sections? That helped me later when I was doing my honors thesis through Barrett to understand how do you set it up your kind of process and then troubleshooting as you're going and what questions you should be kind of looking out for and asking, and then writing at the same time as you're doing your experiment because you do a presentation at the very end of your internship, kind of explaining what your research process was and how did that go for you. Um, it was a lot of fun. And then I also met a lot of students. So we had someone else from DAAD Rise. He was from New York Clarkson University. So I met up with him a lot because we're in the same lab. and then someone through the DAAD WISE program, which is the India equivalent of the RISE program. So he was also there. So we were the three of us just chatting about everything going on, and it was a really fun experience.
Yeah, Avrup, anything that you have to add about the skills that you gained from your project?
Yeah, definitely. I was getting some messages in the chat, so I was just replying them. People were
Awesome.
asking personally, what I basically did related to VR and stuff. So just to like give like a recap initially what my internship was like related to. I've been working at this lab at ASU. It's known as the Meteor Studio. And some of the people I knew, for the DAAD Rise 2023 cohort were also part of that lab. So in my cohort, Katie, you might remember Neha Balamurugan. So she was also a part of the very similar program, and we both work in the same lab initially. So coming to the question that experiences, or like the skills which I kind of like gained while researching for like the lab I work in the DART program, I would say two very particular things that helped me a lot, or like two skills that I would say that will be like the main skills if someone were to ask me that what was your experience researching in Germany. One of them being it was like a very multicultural experience. uh, you know um, Not initially being from the US, initially being from India. Coming to the US is also a multicultural experience, but working in Germany itself, it was far more multicultural than being at ASU, because there I was like for 3 months working in a lab where we had students from basically all the parts of the world in a one particular lab, versus here where I work, it's very concentrated that people only from computer science or only from like one field are actually working. So it was a very interesting experience, because the experience was kind of like related to reverse kinematics in like physics, because I was working for this lab where I had to create a VR simulation program of this machine, how it actually works to 3D print metals. So I had to learn a lot about like machine learning, and then mechanical engineering, some of the stuff I hadn't worked on before, specifically mechanical, or like some of the stuff in like physics, because the last time I did physics was in high school, and I got like credit for it, so I didn't have to do it in ASU. So that was like a very interesting thing, or like one of the skills which I learned was having a very diverse mindset, that it's a research internship, but also at the same time it also feels very corporate-ish, because you're talking to people from different fields. And the other thing which I was like quite fortunate was that my supervisor, his name was Gustavo, a really nice person. So during my second week of internship, there was this conference in Aachen. It was known as the ATEC, and was the Aachen Tech Conference. So there were some German governors, and then some ministers from the German government. So we had to like present our like the idea of our project while we were in like our second week of internship. So that was like one of the most interesting experiences, because we were still not as far as ahead as we wanted to, because it was just the second week. But it was kind of like the thing which put the pressure on, like, okay, we have to at least be able to explain them the project in a very clear sense. So that was like that was two skills which which I would say that I would like to say that they were like amazing, or like out of the world, I would say. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no big deal, Averup. Just talking to all the ministers in Germany for your project. So casual. I really love one of the questions in the chat, so I'm hoping we can do that here just for the sake of the recording. Yesenia asked about previous experience. What experience did you have that aided you into getting DAAD? So yeah, can you just kind of speak to that? What do you think about the research experience, if you had it, was really helpful for those who maybe don't have as much research experience? how do you work with ONSA and kind of get your application to be as competitive as it can be?
Yeah, sure. So people who have had research experience, it will be super nice to put that, or like get that letter of recommendation from your professor at ESU. I mean, if you have done that, then you're doing amazing, already. But if you haven't had that opportunity, because we met some people specifically from, Ireland, because DAAD rises from, like North America, Canada, US, and then Ireland, and then I think what's the fourth other country? I don't.
UK?
UK, yeah.
Yeah.
So there were some Irish people, two of them specifically, who didn't have like, prior research experience. So what they told me, or like what they mentioned, that, how they got that internship, or what made their application very competitive, was that, their research internship, what I mean, your internship will be starting sometime in May, right? But your applications will be like done by mid-December, right? So what they started doing was that once they had that mindset, they started already working on it, even somewhere around, like September or October. Even if you feel like it's too late, it's not too late. You can still start working on, research experiences, work for volunteer experiences. I mean, you don't have to get paid for every experience, because like, let's say you're starting right now, you'll not be able to get paid because you don't have enough experience, right? But feel free to reach people out on LinkedIn. So this particular guy, I remember his name was Theo. He was from Dublin University, and he didn't have much research experience. So he mentioned that he reached out to some professors in University of Cambridge, and that's how he was able to contact them, get some volunteer experience. And now, right now, this guy has like graduated, and he is enrolled for his PhD in University of Cambridge under the same professor. And I was like, I saw his post on LinkedIn. I was like, that was one of the things which was very surprising for me, because he didn't have prior experience before, right? But he did some voluntary work, and then he got into DAAD Rise. So he was able to build up on that.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Olivia and Aniston, on previous research experience and just general advice?
I think when I had applied, I really didn't have any experience in a lab, and I think regardless, everyone feels underqualified, even if you do have experience. I think that's just like a normal feeling. I think when I had applied, I had only been in like a lab outside of like an academic like Gen Bio lab for about 3 months, so not enough to really be like I have lab experience. So I felt like I don't know. It was helpful, but I also think that like the labs that you take with like your life sciences courses or like your general chemistry courses are really important because they do teach you a lot of like valuable skills. And I think that even highlighting those become really important and valuable, and like kind of milking what they taught you in those like Gen Bio courses is valuable because it's still lab experience, even though it's not like independent lab experience. A lot of the programs don't expect you to know everything. And I think even when you do have lab experience, like every lab is so different that there's still some level of training and some level of requirement that it's just, I think the kind of, I guess, only prior thing that I think is that important is that you're really interested in what you're applying to. Because I think if you show that you have drive and like you're really interested in the subject matter, then that kind of becomes more important because even someone with years of lab experience is going to have to get trained in a lab that they're going to because it's just so different and the way that labs work are just set up so differently that I think, these mentors know that they're going to have to train. So I think like applying to programs that like interest you the most, kind of talking about the fact that you still have some, lab skills or lab techniques through what you've learned in academic labs is just as important as being like, whether or not you have 3 months or a year of actual like independent lab experience because training is training. And, I think regardless, like I said, everyone feels underqualified. So just kind of talking about any lab experience that you have becomes important.
I was in my research lab for maybe like a month and a half when I was applying for DOD Rise, so not very long. It was part of the Barrett College Fellows program. It had nothing to do with my major. I was doing the expression of hydrogenase in heliobacteria, which is really far out from chemical engineering. But for me, it was just kind of getting those like foundational skills for a lab. And like, yes, I know fire safety, I know hazardous waste disposal, I know kind of like the basics that are pretty much the same universally. But it was also just me putting myself out there and saying, I'm willing to step into a new role and learn something new. I'm really enthusiastic when I'm looking at something new. I will do a lot of research beforehand. I come prepared. And that's how I kind of framed myself of these are the transferable skills that I have from my lab experience. That's kind of how I view maybe having a little bit limited experience when you're going into it, just finding what kind of sets you apart from maybe some other applicants, and maybe some of those like softer skills are what are going to be more important what that you emphasize in your application rather than a technical role.
Yeah, and along those lines, what are, again, another great question in the chat. How did you go about choosing your top three internships? I feel like when you go into the DAAD internship database, it's like you're like a kid in a candy store because there's so many possibilities of things, and you're like, how can I choose just three? So, what's your advice for students on choosing an internship that hits that balance between maybe it's a bit of a reach, I don't know the skill, but I would like to learn, and I'm qualified enough to go to it. Because I think sometimes I'm like, which one is going to be actually professionally relevant for me and which one's just kind of a fun side quest? So what advice do you have for that?
I think for me, like narrowing my top three was kind of just looking at like what interests me and, what is kind of in a general field that I'm interested in, and then finding like top three there. And I based mine purely off interest. So, I mean, a lot of mine, I was kind of like, I've heard of some of these techniques. I've maybe done them once or twice even, but I don't know them. Like I don't know. I was kind of really maybe brutally honest, like because we haven't really talked about it, but once you apply and sometimes you'll hear back from them and they'll want to do kind of like an interviewing process. So I did like get on Zooms with like multiple people in the program who were like kind of interested in me as an applicant and kind of just being like, like I really don't have much experience with it, but like I'm super interested in it. And so mine was purely based off how much I thought I would like the program or like, the techniques that they were doing. And I made sure to like look up the techniques and Google them and just kind of figure out what the process looked like and what I thought I would enjoy from like day to day. Because I think that's what becomes important when you're going to end up spending so much time there. That as much as there is like this work-life balance, you also need to find this like work balance of what, I can handle and what I want to be doing going to lab for. So mine were all purely based off interest. I'm interested in plant bio, but there's like a lot of agricultural based ones, which weren't really my thing. So then and I knew that. So I kind of veered towards going towards more molecular bio things, which wasn't my strong suit, I guess, initially, because I guess a lot of plant bio is more agricultural based. So I kind of veered off path a little bit, but I think just showing how much I was interested in the actual project itself showed in the application, even though, my skills might have not exactly aligned with, what they were looking for, whatever. It was more so about like my passion and it came through in my cover letter.
I also think a factor to consider is what city you're going to be in. That was kind of one of my deciding factors of which location will I end up at, just because when you're not in lab and you're not working on your project, what are you going to do within the city that you're living in? What people are you going to meet? So I was looking at smaller towns. That was my preference. I don't think I would have liked Berlin as much as some people did. And that's just for me. So I picked some of the smaller towns and I looked at Facebook groups that were already there that are like, hey, we're like an international Facebook group. We have people who live here who get together maybe once a week and we're open to having just anyone join. So I kind of like started poking around and finding what kind of groups are already established and where could I kind of fit into that. So I met with an art group like within my first week. I met with an art group. They meet every Sunday and they draw in a park and go get brunch together. And that was like a continuous thing that I did. So engaging with the people around me was really important. Project wise, it does have a lot to do with your enthusiasm. So with technical skills, you might not meet every single requirement that they're asking for because it is really hard to sometimes get that. Um, but if you love that project so much that you're like, I will learn things before I even get there, and you want to express that enthusiasm and you have the time to devote into learning something new, that shouldn't stop you from making that application. Um, and that's some of my friends who are like, oh, like I don't know this like one very specific like niche program they use for their software, but I kind of generally understand how it works because it's similar to something else. I'm like, great, kind of emphasize that you have the foundational knowledge on how it works, but you'll learn the specifics before you get there. But kind of acknowledging that there are other things going on as well. But yes, mine kind of focused on location as well as like interest, but location played a really heavy role for me.
Yes, location, because there are some folks who are, I don't know, for whatever reason, they're like, I only want to be in Berlin. And the big cities, not only are they a little bit more expensive in terms of housing, they are very popular. So just keep in mind that the smaller to medium-sized cities are really affordable. Again, it's just one stipend that you get per month to assist with housing, right? So if you get 1,000 euros a month and rent is 800 euros a month in Berlin, then most of your stuff is going to go towards housing versus if you live in a smaller city, it might be like 300 euros a month, right? So just keep that in mind when you're looking at cities. I think the smaller to medium-sized cities are where it's at because you can travel just as easily.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I think when I was applying, I had like this exact same question to you, Katie, and you like answered that, just do like research on the basis of like where you want to go and, where you want to be. So like my first city of choice was actually Aachen. And my second choice was like Berlin. First, because that was like my initial motivation where I wanted to work, My initial motivation was my project. Second was Berlin, because, Berlin is cool. Who doesn't want to go? But thankfully, I got into, like my first city of preference. So I didn't have to, like look for like email, people like, oh, I didn't get in this one. Maybe if I can try for Berlin or some other thing. So what happened for me was I would say I was actually quite lucky. It was a very small town, like compared to Berlin. Berlin is like it is very diverse. But Aachen, it was like so niche that I had like studied German in my middle school, when I was like in fifth or sixth grade. So I had studied it for like 2 or 3 years. But the part I was like living in, no one spoke English. Everyone spoke like German. And the first 3 days, because I arrived there on like Saturday, first 3 days were like horrible for me. I called my friends and I was like, I'm coming back. I'm not staying here anymore. No one wants to speak in like English. That was my initial expression, right? Because I went to Kiev or any place I went to, and the part I was living in, it wasn't like full of youngsters or stuff. Because, that's where I found my housing. And I wasn't very fortunate to find housing in the city center, right? Like, or in the downtown area. But honestly, after like 3 to 4 weeks, I was like, couldn't have been in a better place, to be honest. Because I didn't like it initially, but that's the difference between a big town and a small town. So I visited Berlin, I think, in my 6th or 7th week of my internship, visiting some friends, which we made while we were at the internship. But the comparison, what I found between a small town and a big town is that, if you're in a small town somewhere near the border, we were like 3 hours from Belgium. So you could, like on a weekend, you could go to get like waffles. By the night, you're back in Germany. And that was like the best part. Paris was like 2 hours away. So I was like, I couldn't have asked for a better place. I mean, where else I would want to be, right? We are near the border. If you want to have like Stroop waffles, you can go to, like Netherlands on the weekend. It's just like 2 miles away from the place of my work. So, I mean, I couldn't have wished for something else. So that was like the best part. So, I mean, wherever you guys want to go, first, make it a priority where you want to work. Like, project should be your priority, not, like, because like you'll get tons of time to visit around, but if you don't like what you're doing, or, if you end up getting a project which you didn't really like initially, but you wanted to go to Berlin, then you won't like the 12 weeks. But if you like what you're doing, then your workplace will be fun. And on the weekends, you'll be able to explore.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I know we're running out of time quickly and this goes by so fast. I love to hear just about some of the fun stuff. Okay, outside of the lab, technical expertise. What was it like traveling around Germany, Europe? What were some of the key events that you did outside of the lab that you thought was like a highlight of your summer in Germany?
Does anyone want to go first? I can go last.
I can go quickly. Um, yeah, so actually, one of my huge highlights was the Heidelberg Conference, which is something that's kind of built into the program. They set it up and they set up housing for you, and they kind of, they set up the whole weekend for you. And it's a science conference, and it's like everyone in the program gets together, and then we all stay in the same hostel, and you bunk with other people in the program. And it was such a highlight for me. And so that was like one of the weekends we all came in from all the towns that we came in. I was relatively close, which was nice. And Heidelberg is beautiful and they have like a walking tour or you can do like a boat tour or whatever. Um, and I met a bunch of people there who I basically ended up with. The Heidelberg was closer, honestly, to the kind of the end of my internship for me. But I met a bunch of people at that conference who then I like met up with for the coming weekends traveling, and we went to each other's towns because we kind of just like really hit it off being there over the weekend. Um, so that was like such a highlight for me. And I think that like doing a lot of traveling was like I spent every weekend somewhere else, which was like a lot of fun. You kind of learn, how to travel alone and, what works best for you and whatever. And it's kind of a learning curve. But once you get into it, like after that, I was just like ready to go every weekend. And I did Paris, I did Amsterdam, I did Switzerland, like I did all the big ones because I was kind of in like southern Germany, so I was at the bottom towards everything. Yeah, I did a lot of traveling and I think like Heidelberg was my highlight definitely, which was so nice too because it was like something that was funded, so they paid for our hostel, they paid for us to stay there, they gave us a stipend, so it was basically like a free trip like built in. And then I got to like listen to everyone's research and met people in like similar areas of research. And yeah, so that was easily my highlight. And it was kind of fun because we did like academic stuff during the day and then we all went out at night and we went to stuff like different little like clubs and stuff in Heidelberg, which was super fun because then it was like a lot of bonding. But yeah, so that was easily my highlight of the whole summer.
Yeah, for me, so I was coming off the tail end of COVID, so we didn't have a conference, unfortunately. But we kind of found other ways to meet up. So I went to Berlin on one weekend because the Philharmonic was hosting an open house. So all day they would just play music for free, and that was like really exciting for me because I trained in classical music for 7 years. So just being able to be at the Philharmonic and hearing all this music, it really like hit home for like what I enjoy doing and something outside of the lab. I was also in like a new city every single weekend, just kind of traveling around, meeting with new people. I joined a lot of international groups while I was there, and I'm still in contact with most of them. One of the people recently just got married, so we were all like congratulating her and kind of interacting in a different way because all of us are doing so many different things. I made like so many like great friends throughout this journey. I got Be Real because one of them was like, "Hey, you should join this." So I got it specifically because of them, and it just kind of spiraled. And just making all those connections was like probably my favorite thing in the world. And we'll send each other postcards whenever we're traveling. So when I go somewhere in the US, I'll send something. When they go to somewhere else in Europe, they'll send me something. And it's like little interactions. And these are people that were not part of DAAD Rise at all. Like these are just students at the university or who live nearby. And I just was so happy to meet so many great people there. And that's probably like my highlight and like the biggest takeaway. Also, I was an honorable mention for their video contest my year. So I got to be like, hey, here are all the really fun things I did. And they're like, great, you're getting honorable mentions. Here's some money, prize money for that. And it was just like recapping all of like my adventures and things. And that was kind of a nice way to like wrap up the summer with like a nice little video that's a summary of everywhere I've been and all the people that I met.
Yeah. Uh, your both guys' experience actually, this sounds super fun. Yeah. I think everyone who goes to Germany, they have, like very particular experiences which will, like only be a part of your life, and they are very tailored to your choice. Because like Germany has a lot to offer, and Europe in general, because like, you have access to public transport. For me, if I were to say like, I would just like highlight three particular experiences which were like very or like super fun for me, and they wouldn't have been possible if I wouldn't have got the DAAD Rise opportunity. Because so for, one of them being, presenting to the Minister of Technology at the ATEC, like our project in the second week, which I mentioned already before. Second one being, I think it was like our third or fourth week of project, and we had this hackathon at our university, the Arviteha, and we took up part in that hackathon, and we had like a whole team, and we were able to win that hackathon. It was like a chocolate printing hackathon, and we had to, make some different algorithms. So it was super fun. And over the hackathon, I made friends with this person, with this guy, and we were like, super, we were like, like brothers across, kind of like that thing. So he visited me last December, and he visited me during my cousin's marriage while I was back home in India for like about 2 weeks. And we went around, I showed him around, and it was super fun. Other than that, my supervisor from my internship, he was like a Brazilian guy. So I had like two supervisors. One of them was German, one of them was Brazilian. So he got me into this dancing thing, because like when I was here, Katie advised me, I think you were in Spain and then you started doing salsa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that, you should try some different things. So I hadn't actually done, some sort of dancing before in my life. So he got me into doing this Brazilian dance form. It was known as the zouk. And I actually became quite good in it, over the 3 months of time. And other than that, it was somewhere around like, I think May 25th or 26th, because when you're in Europe, there's like tons of things going on. If you guys are into techno or, music, Belgium, Tomorrowland, just go there. Just get the tickets already, think about it later. I'm just going to say that. So, because I was like over there, and it was like 25th to 27th of May, and we had this Formula One race in Monaco, and I was able to go to that, and I was like, that was like a kind of like a dream come true for me, because you have to get like tickets in advance, and you don't get that opportunity if you're like somewhere else. If I wouldn't have been in like Germany in that period, I wouldn't have been able to, see that spectacular race. So I'm like a big fan of, concerts and like going into Formula One races. So that was like a thing for me.
That's so awesome. I love these stories, and I can hear them honestly all day. So thank you for sharing your stories. And I'm sorry that it's going so quickly, but I do want to be cognizant of time. For folks, please, if you think talking to alumni is as interesting as I do, please join us for the DAAD Social Hour. This is something new that we're doing this year. There's actually 2 representatives that are coming from Germany, from the DAAD Foundation, who love ASU so much that they decided to come visit us. So we have a social that's happening October 30th. Super chill. Just come in, coffee, tea, cookies. I'll be there. Our alumni will be there. And, we can chat just more informally about your application, invite your friends. We ask that you RSVP just so we know how much coffee and sweet treats we need to buy. But feel free to come and go as you like, and then invite your friends. So it's going to be a really lovely opportunity to get some face-to-face time as well. Any final thoughts, alumni? Like quick quips or advice, final things you want to say before we finish?
I can say like a quick thing. So if you guys, are already looking for applying, or if you guys have, a particular topic in your mind already, you might already be on LinkedIn, or if you're not, you can create a profile. Go on LinkedIn, just search DAAD Rise, and you guys will be able to find all the people from the cities who actually did internships. So you'll be able to reach out to them, and they are super helpful. Like all the people who did DAAD Rise, they want to give back to the community. So that's one of the good things. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to us, feel free to reach out to us. I mean, Aniston or me or Olivia, I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach me out on LinkedIn. Also from people, from the university you want to, like do internship in, or specifically in the field, reach out to them on LinkedIn. That will be a helpful advice.
I do have one quick thing. I think that if you're even remotely interested, you should apply. I think some people who are really, really interested take the time, go through all the steps, but even if there's like a slight tinge of interest, you should apply, even if you don't take it super seriously. I mean, I kind of did it on a whim, and it turned out to be like one of the greatest experiences. So I think even if you have a slight interest, you should definitely apply.
I'm gonna piggyback of Innocent, like definitely apply and then also like engage with each other. You guys are like your best resource on like what sounds really good or how do you bring something out that sounds really nice about the things that you've done. Just use your network to kind of bring out the best in what you can do. Because I think everyone who is here honestly has like a really good shot at getting in based on like your past experiences and what you've done before. So just talk with each other, engage, ask questions about like, hey, could you read over this? Because there's a lot of you, and that's a lot of great opinions kind of feeding into your cover letters.
Mm-hmm. And also reach out to ONSA for the cover letters and your personal application. They will help a lot, because at first you'll think like you have done like, maybe done like 3 or 5 alterations and you'll be like, okay, this looks far better than the first version. But trust me, if you reach out to Katie and Kaya, then you'll be like, this is like 100 times far better than what I thought that it could be, at the final version.
Yeah, it does make a difference, y'all. I know it's hard to believe, but it really does. And that's what we're here for, literally. Like we're writing specialists. Olivia is actually a peer mentor this year, so she's also gonna be hosting her own office hours as well, doing peer review groups. So like we're really on it. We're here to help make sure your cover letter is the best it can be. Again, it's an international audience. Questions on like formatting and content and just working with one another is gonna really make it shine. So at this point, your next step is to, assuming that you're eligible and you're ready to go and start applying, open up that DAAD application, start looking through internships, and then make an appointment with myself. You'll be able to see DAAD Rise intake, and that's how you know you'll be in the right spot. And you'll be able to choose a day and a time. If there's something other that needs you want to do a one-on-one, or if you have a more specific question, you're welcome to shoot me an email as well at catherine.salgado@asu.edu. Again, we're happy to help. And alumni, if you're comfortable, feel free to throw your email in the chat if you want anyone to reach out to you. If not, no worries about it. They'll probably find you on LinkedIn anyways. But if you're comfortable with it, feel free. So thank you all for a wonderful session. Again, it's always jam-packed with so many great stories. So please consider applying to DAAD Rise. It's an amazing opportunity. Make an appointment, shoot me an email. We're happy to help, and enjoy the last couple hours of your fall break, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye bye. Good luck.